I'm Vicky McGee. I'm the Inclusive Economy Programme Lead for Calderdale, working for Calderdale Council. And what I'm going to start off with is asking people to just introduce themselves and say where they're from. And actually, if you're here representing as an employer or as an employee or perhaps as a stakeholder or representative of a community or special interest group, that would be interesting. So, Debbie, do you want to just start?
Yeah, I'm Debbie Gon. I'm the council's corporate procurement officer, so I'm the procurement lead. Part of my role is sort of the strategic, so the steer and direction for the council for procurement, and a big part of which is social value, and the Fair Work Charter will form part of that eventually. So from me, it's a point of view of looking at how that will work or how it would affect businesses, particularly our small businesses and VCSEs as well, because I'm quite interested in that, the impact it has, and just what we could do with it going forward to help us when we're working with suppliers.
Thank you. Hi, Michelle.
Hi everybody, I'm Michelle Robinson and I work on the place development team for Calderdale. We're going out and visiting independent small businesses, so therefore it would be interesting to see what this, a little bit more about this, what this is all about.
Fabulous, thank you. David.
Morning, Vicky. I just missed the first bit. I take it we're doing introductions.
We are.
Yeah, okie dokie. So yeah, I'm David Greenwood. I work in the commercial procurement unit. You can see my manager is with us this morning, Debbie Gorn, and then my colleague Salahar Montgomery. And I think I'll pass on to the next person.
Thank you. And I'll do the other David. Sorry, I just realised there's two.
Morning, everyone. I'm the other David, and I'm a place development officer for the Lower Valley, like Michelle, working for Annalise.
Thank you. And I'll do Salahar now, please. And apologies for mispronouncing your name when you came on.
No, that was perfect. Yeah, I'm Salahar Montgomery and I work with David and Debbie in procurement.
Thank you. Annalise?
Yeah, morning. I'm Annalisa Gray and I'm the place development manager. So looking after the guys or helping the guys that are covering the various areas for place development in Calderdale.
Thank you. And Sue Millen?
Hi everyone, I'm Sue Millen. I am the Finance and HR Manager at Women's Centre, which is a charity office in Halifax. We work throughout Calderdale and Kirklees, and we're all about sort of treating our employees well, and I just want to find out a bit more about what it's all about.
Fabulous, thank you. Carrie?
Good morning everybody. I'm here representing Suma Foods. We're a distribution company in Elland. We formerly at Dinclough, and my position at Suma is I am on the board and I've been elected the diversity lead for the board, and I'm very interested to share ideas for improved and continuous diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Carrie. Asif?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Asif Hussain. I'm part of the project. I'm project coordinator on the Inclusive Economy team, working alongside Vicky.
Thank you. Jade?
I work for a company called Full Circle Funerals. We have a funeral service in Halifax, and I'm part of the head office team.
Lovely, lovely to meet you. And Rachel?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rachel Gordon. I work with the place development team as well.
Thank you. And I believe I've asked everybody now, but if I haven't, will you please shout out? Yep. Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen now with you. Can you see me presentation? Sorry, I can't see you anymore. So if you can shout out.
Not yet,
Vicky.
No, it's not
Oh, you
coming up,
can't?
Vicky.
Right,
No.
hang on. That's because I've just done the presentation and not actually shared the screen, haven't I? That's why. Right, now you should be able to see a presentation.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice to see it big. Excellent. Good start. Okay, so I can't actually see you now. So if somebody could let me know if anybody puts the hand up during this, or do feel free to just shout out if you've want to stop me or any questions. So today's workshop, welcome. We're going to be looking at the proposals for a West Yorkshire Fair Work Charter and hopefully discuss what we think the implications might be for Calderdale, including how practical the proposals are for how to evidence and achieve the charter for employees of all sizes across different sectors, for employers, sorry, of all sizes across different sectors. I'm hoping that taking part in today's discussion will give you a little bit more information around what the proposed Fair Work Charter is, but also encourage you to respond to the consultation, either as an individual, as an employer, or as a representative or stakeholder giving views on behalf of a community or special interest group. We've done introductions, so it's not a daft question to start come to this and ask the question, what exactly is a Fair Work Charter? And it's a way to recognise, increase and secure the fairest possible employment behaviours and practices. It's a universal set of standards that in the case of a West Yorkshire Fair Work Charter would be open to achievement by all West Yorkshire employers, regardless of their size or sector. And we think that it could be a way to help tackle issues across the region like in-work poverty, poor mental health, barriers to employment and progression, and productivity challenges. So in a manifesto, the Mayor committed to implementing a Fair Work Charter, and in July last year, she established a stakeholder of regional stakeholders to oversee its development, including representatives from each local authority. And in Calderdale, our rep is our Director of Public Health, Deb Harkins. West Yorkshire Combined Authority has committed up to 600,000 over 3 years to develop and implement this Fair Work Charter. And the Mayor's now calling on all employers, stakeholders and communities across West Yorkshire to participate in a public consultation. So I'm very much hoping that this will play. And then you can hear from Tracy herself.
There's no sound, Vicky, but we can see the titles, the subtitles.
Is there not?
No.
Why is there not a sound? What I'm gonna why would
there was some subtitles, but there was no sound.
Oh, was there? Okay, so we can carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back in the room. I'm sorry about that you couldn't hear it, but hopefully that wasn't too odd an experience for you. So why does Tracy think that West Yorkshire needs a Fair Work Charter? So West Yorkshire is one of the largest economies and population centres in the north of England, and the population is projected to grow by 8% to more than 2.5 million in 2043. The region is highly diverse with many ethnicities, backgrounds and lifestyles represented, meaning there's great cultural diversity here. We've got an employed workforce of 1.1 million and around 95,000 businesses. The majority of which are small to medium-sized enterprises that employ less than 250 employees, but actually less than 1% of the total employees are large employers. That's 350 are large employers in the whole region. But despite our scale and strengths, too few employees here currently enjoy fair work. Too many people are working in poor quality jobs. Too many people are not paid enough to make ends meet. There are big pay gaps between groups of workers. Too many people are suffering from poor mental health, and too many working age people are not in work. So that's why the Mayor believes that West Yorkshire needs its own charter to support our needs, but ensuring that it's aligned with and not in competition with other initiatives. So the consultation is split into two parts: what fair work means, and then what it looks like. And we think fair means a thriving West Yorkshire economy where employers enable everyone to participate and all our diverse communities can benefit. And we think that the work part of fair is employment that offers everyone opportunity, security, well-being, employee voice and fulfilment. These are the 5 domains of fair work outlined in the consultation. So the first sort of question is, do the 5 domains cover what should be included in the Fair Work Charter? And we think this means inclusive pathways into employment, inclusive recruitment practices, flexible working arrangements, fair pay for everyone, fair working conditions, guaranteed hours of work, safe and inclusive working environments, free from violence, bullying, discrimination, harassment and victimisation. Workplaces that foster good physical and mental health, support for wider aspects of well-being, including personal financial health, which, you know, knowing the cost of living increases and where we're going over the next months, years, is potentially a really big part of what we need to be focused on in Calderdale. Employee voice, inclusive consultation and engagement with staff at all levels, opportunities for all employees to contribute to decision making, and where requested, employees recognition and support for trade unions. And then finally, the fulfilment domain, learning and development opportunities for everyone, regular and meaningful performance management, and opportunities to support civil society. So first of all, I just want us to think about what could outcomes like this mean for Calderdale? And if you could, I'm not going to bother putting us in breakout rooms actually. We've got sort of 5 minutes to just open the discussion because there's not so many of us on the call unless I can't see everybody and we've suddenly been joined by hordes of people. No extra people.
No, we haven't. Still the same people.
That's all right. I've got 2 screens, but I can only see the presentation and the yeah. So I'm going to put the screen back up and just open up for 5 minutes to just, as I said, let's just get it back on. There we are. What could this mean for Calderdale if these are the outcomes? And please just do shout out because, like I say, I can't actually see you if you put your hand up.
I was just going to say, sorry, Vicky, just to try and start the conversation going.
Mm-hmm.
The guaranteed hours of work, just thinking about casual contracts and things like that, and 0-hour contracts, that's always quite difficult. You know, whether that is going to work or not work, I don't know, but I can't quite get my head around that one, how it would work for. There's a lot of 0 hours contracts and casual contracts, even within the council, actually. And I don't know about other businesses that are on the call whether they have any, but I just wondered how that one would work.
I think that is key, actually, Annalise.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah,
I think that's key out of all of those things. I mean, some of them are quite shocking. That we need a charter to give people, you know, a workplace that is free from violence and bullying and discrimination, harassment and victimisation. but I'm sure those places do exist. But yeah, I think in the current market where, you know, things are a bit unknown, that is the problem. Being able to give your workers security and guarantees might be hard for businesses who don't have those guarantees themselves, you know, in an unsecure market.
Not everybody wants guaranteed hours either. Some people want a zero, you know, particularly students and young people want a 0 hours contract because they need the flexibility to go, no, I don't want to work this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. My own daughter has a 0 hour contract. So yeah, I do agree with that. Some people like 0 hour contracts, don't they?
I think the problem in Calderdale is having so many small businesses. If you're an employer and you only employ a couple of people to cover the busy hours, whatever they may be, whatever your business might be, how can you be that flexible, really? A lot of businesses can't afford to do what they perhaps would like to do and give the flexibility that an employee would like. A lot of it is going to come down to cost. And I just think at the moment, a lot of small businesses are really struggling just to keep their head above water. And as much as they would love to, I don't know, send their employees on training courses and pay for training and give them time off for training, you know, and let them have the flexibility with the working hours, as much as they'd love to do it, I don't think a lot of them can actually afford it. And I think they need perhaps some financial support. How that would look like, I don't know. But I know
that is a question I'm going to be asking shortly. Is
yeah,
what support we need.
I think the problem is, as much as it would be great if every employer could do this, in practice, it's perhaps not feasible.
Can I just jump in and say, when you say it'd be great if every employer could do this, why would it be great? I mean, I think I'm saying the obvious, but what if we were to be a local authority that was meeting each of these domains, succeeding at all of these domains, what would it mean for Calderdale?
It would be a fantastic place to work. It means that Calderdale would get the reputation of being somewhere great to live, to work, which is what we're all sort of aiming for within Calderdale. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of employers can manage to do all of this, but not everything. I think, for example, working for a local authority, you sort of know that you're going to have the opportunity to have training, and you know, perhaps as an employee, it's a good place to work. It would be good to think that other businesses could also offer that as well.
Yeah. So thinking about is there anything that's kind of that you don't agree with on this list? I'm guessing probably not, but is there anything that's missing? I suppose, do the 5 domains cover what we would all think that fair work is as well, for you as an employee or an employer?
I was just going to hop in if I may, Vicky.
Yes.
It's linking back as well to what Rachel's just been talking about. Being realistic, I do agree that there are things that might be, you know, a lot more of a challenge for smaller businesses. However, things like, you know, guaranteed hours or, you know, a guaranteed minimum number of hours. I think there are lots of things that more medium to large size employers definitely would have the resources to put into place. So I think possibly some things on the charter need to be, you know, specifically aimed at those larger organisations who are more likely to have those resources.
As one of those organisations, I feel I should step in, and it is something that SUMA brought in some years ago now, that we would offer minimum hours to short-term contract workers. So nobody's on a 0 hour contract, as I was when I started for SUMA. I used to just rock up at the canteen and wait for somebody to call in sick, literally every day. It was ridiculous. And and it's no way for people to live. I think most people who are on 0 hours contract don't want to be, even though I acknowledge that some people do like it. So I think there's something in what you've just said, David, to say some kind of flexibility, to say that I think it's unfair when a company says, I'm not going to tell you what hours you're going to be working, but when I tell you those hours, you have to do it, which is actually, that's not a fair way to do it. And that's often what does happen, because if you don't do it, you don't get future work. So I think it's about flexibility and it being two-way. And I wonder if you could build into the charter a percentage of workers, so that leaves some flexibility for being able to have a small group of people that do come and go as work increases and goes down. And maybe by using percentages, then the smaller companies might be able to say, well, yeah, most people are, but actually we need some people who come and go, if that makes sense.
What about the fair pay for everyone part of it? Because if you look further into the consultation documents, that goes a little bit further into saying people working towards paying the real living wage, or paying the real living wage, and then working to showing that they're working towards it if they employ apprenticeships and other different contracts as well. I mean, what do you, that's going to have an impact on the economy, but in different ways, in the initial impact on those smaller businesses to be able to do that, or smaller employees. It's not just businesses, it's employers in the third sector. So Sue, obviously you're from the voluntary sector. What would that it not, mean that you couldn't sign up to the Fair Work Charter?
Well, I'm just looking at I think we would like to say that we do attempt to meet all these. Obviously, there's issues around the levels of funding we receive, and we maybe can't always pay people as much as we would like, but we always do meet. We are a living wage employer anyway, so we do pay well, but I'm looking at the list. It almost seems to me as if there's sort of two levels here. There's the basic things that are really, really essential that I think anyone signing up to the charter should be able to meet, around things like fair working conditions, inclusive recruitment, the working environment free from violence. And then you've got the ones where the smaller businesses may find it difficult, things like learning and development opportunities for everyone. And I just wonder if we've got almost a sort of absolute minimum, and the things that people could be working towards or could almost get exemptions from if they're not possible for their charity or business to do.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure there if we get different levels and that's not practical, and actually we want to ensure that everyone is committing to the full thing to get that charter. So I'm not, it's all new to me, and they were just some initial thoughts.
Thank you.
It'd be interesting to talk about. I wrote down as soon as you said it, Vicky, how do we evidence it? And I think that's key, because learning and development opportunities actually doesn't mean that much. And I can't imagine that every employer couldn't do something for everybody, actually.
Yeah.
Even if it's giving them access to a website, you can do this in your own time. Everybody can do something, but it is about how we evidence it.
Yeah, and presumably the 600,000 over 3 years that Wicker have got for implementing this Fair Work Charter will go some way into working up how this is accredited in some way, if it's accredited, if it's self-assessment, a kite mark, or whatever. And there is space in the consultation to answer the different domains and what you think of those domains and where you think there's struggle with it, but there's also space to kind of put those thoughts in as well about if this was a kite mark, you know, what you might think about that.
I was just going to say, Vicky, I think there's something to be said. I mean, I know in previous discussions around this, we've got into what guidance is available, etc. Because actually, from what you've heard from some small businesses that have already done this, that have, you know, figured out the benefits, it's actually that figuring out the way of doing it that becomes a bit of a barrier for some businesses. So they might want to do it, but they just don't know how. And that was, but from a beneficial point of view, I mean, it's already been said about how that improves us as an attractive location for recruitment, especially at the moment when everything's so competitive. You know, it just helps. And it bounces back. It has repercussions on the economy, because if people are happy and earning, and then they spend locally and stay. So
I wonder as well about the timing of this as well, that we are in a coming out of one crisis and about to go into another, it feels like, around cost of living, and the role of employers and businesses and the different sectors in supporting their workforce, their local communities through this time is really important. And it's how this isn't a tick box thing. It becomes something really meaningful for me. So my next question is sort of we've started delving into this a little bit more, but how practically achievable is the charter? Are there things in here that you think are going to be challenging for your sector or your organisation? But also, we've started talking about if you're a smaller employer or a bigger employer, is it achievable for all sectors and all sizes of employers? Is there anything that kind of stands out that isn't? Sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
So, Michelle, carry on, please.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you just touched on it a moment ago when you were saying that, you know, at this moment in time, is it the right time? You know, I think we're coming out of COVID. A lot of businesses are struggling. A lot of small businesses that, you know, we're visiting at the moment, in our areas, are struggling enough. So I think that, you know, with regards to guaranteeing, you know, the work, the hours, the pay, I think that will be a challenge. Someone mentioned flexibility, and I think that is absolutely key. I think that's crucial to all of this. But yeah, at the moment, I think that, you know, a lot of people will struggle. The other question is really, what kind of guidance are businesses going to have to be able to achieve these things? What kind of support?
I'm going to tell you, the next question is, what would signing up? Oh no, sorry, I've jumped it. If support was available, what would it need to look like? So it's probably worth considering these two together. How practically achievable is the charter, and if support was available, what would it need to look like, as well? And I think really I'm thinking about in Calderdale, what as a council, as a partnership, as larger organisations being peer support to other organisations, what do we need to do to make sure that we know we want to achieve this? We know that this list of what fair work looks like is going to make Calderdale great. So how do we get everybody there?
Well, I wonder how much this would save the council if people were paid, if everybody, or let's say the majority of employers signed up for this, and let's say fair pay was a living wage. How much would that save the council if everybody across West Yorkshire was paid the living wage rather than the minimum wage? But I also know that small businesses are struggling with the minimum wage. And I know small businesses who say, I'm genuinely not taking anything myself. my employees get paid and I don't, and that's just not sustainable. And the only way of passing that on is through higher prices for your services or products, which in turn, you know, messes things up. So I think for some smaller businesses, support looks like cash. So or maybe reduced rates if they are paying a living wage, and I think that would be amazing.
Well, like you say, if it potentially it's going to save the council money, so there's a reason there for reducing rates, isn't there? Because your rates are to provide the services to meet that need. If we look at, I mean, somebody mentioned about the pathways into employment, career progression, recruitment practices and things being things that if you're a small organisation, you might not have the infrastructure to be able to put that stuff in place. And as a council, as a large employer, or not just the council, but other large employers do have these structures in place, do have access to HR support and recruitment, you know, teams and things. I'm just, what kind of support can we collectively create around that inclusive pathways into employment? You know, we've got a really excellent high school, colleges in Calderdale as well, and you know that what can we do to link up more with the curriculum and students to progress into careers?
I think work experience is important, actually. I know going back years when I was a student, I did do a work placement, and I've had work placement students before in our tourist information centres when they were open. I think giving students at colleges and universities and what have you the experience kind of like sows the seeds with them, whether they actually want to go down that career path or not. So I do actually think work experience links with colleges is quite, you know, beneficial for both parties, really, for the students but also for the businesses.
Yeah,
I think there is something about that engagement, that knowing what's out there and what's an option. You know, what we do, it tends to be the bigger suppliers that we've got on our major projects ones, but that are working with schools around what, and I know that's a big ask for small businesses because that's time out of your day, you know, so it's finding that sort of balance, if you like, where you can make it accessible. So is there something around the timing of when you do, you know, sort of engagement with the colleges or whatever, and but it's got to work on the small businesses terms. It can't work as we do now, where it's, oh yeah, this company's got a team that specialise in this, so therefore they all turn up. Yeah, that's great, but when you're a 2-3 person company, you don't have that capacity. And I think that's the thing for me, is that capacity to do this and engage with this, and around the timing.
I can speak for people that I know that have been small businesses that have done the apprenticeship scheme. So they have people working, you know, 3 or 4 days a week. And like you say, you know, 2 or 3 people, to take one person out per week and pay for that, even if you're not paying for the training, is incredibly expensive. But with flexibility, it can work on, you know, from the employer's side and from the employee's side. So kind of to share that cost in a way. So like partly you do it in your own time, partly you do it in work time. But it's I think what's hard is jumping through all the hoops that you need to jump through to do the apprenticeship. And somebody was just saying, well, how do you do this? You know, how do I evidence this? So I think if you wanted to make it accessible and cheaper, because we want it to keep going, without having to burden the council with lots and lots of work. I think you could probably work with larger businesses to set up, well, how do you do inclusive pathways to employment and career progression? What does that look like? What's the basics of it? And just have a website that's available for anybody to see those things.
That's a great idea.
Are you thinking more like a buddying system, something like that, or a mentoring system, even where some bigger companies are able to offer that support?
I wasn't, but I think that's a great idea too. I was just thinking that some of the larger businesses can do the work, can say, what does it look like? How do you do performance management? You know, small business say, well, they come in, they do the work, they go away. What do you want me to do? Well, actually, it's just feedback. It's just saying, do they know what their work is? Do they know what doing the wrong thing is, what the right thing is? And large businesses could write that up in just a one-page document. This is what performance management looks like.
Mm. Yeah, and we've got a bit of a stick in the council through our procurement policy to be able to require that big contractors are putting social value into their contracts, and that include one of the ways they can do that is by supporting the supply, what we might call the supply chain, but our small, medium-sized businesses. And I think I'll keep trying to not say businesses and say employers, because this is about including the voluntary sector organisations as well, who are some of our biggest employers up in North Halifax, for example, would be North Halifax Partnership or Halifax Opportunities Trust. The big voluntary sector organisations are not just small voluntary groups made up of just volunteers. They're, substantial businesses in Calderdale.
I was just going to add, Vicky, if I may. I do think that, I mean, I couldn't possibly say how many employers across Calderdale could implement how many of the suggested points, but what I do imagine is that there will be employers who are keen, are in a position to implement, lots of things on this list, but maybe just don't actually know, as I think what has already been said, what these things look like in practice. So I think, I know Carrie had already talked about, a website resource. I'm wondering as well, could the charter even include, concrete suggestions? I just think that will pick up people who are very willing but just don't know quite how some of these points would be implemented. I think the more they'll definitely look to the council for guidance on that. And I think that could, in turn give us some more concrete outcomes, which would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. The next question, you can keep answering any of them, but the next question is a bit more personalised. So thinking about what the charter would mean for you as an employee or as a stakeholder from a community of special need or place. And also I wanted to kind of throw in the person who is currently working in Calderdale, who might be being having unfair working conditions. Some of the things that you would expect are a given around the safe and inclusive, free from violence, that kind of thing, are not there. Perhaps they're being exploited as well. Where does the Fair Work Charter address that? Or how can the Fair Work Charter address that? Or how can we in Calderdale use the Fair Work Charter to address that?
I think there would have to be a more official sort of sign-up process and continuing yearly checks, because if it's sort of self-regulation, the employers that don't provide safe working environments are not going to say that they don't provide safe working environments. So there would need it, I guess, need to be sort of a more regulated thing. There would need to be an overseeing body or group, I guess, to make sure employers are actually implementing this.
Yeah. Which is, I think, under the employee voice domain, like you say, if you're a poor or a bad employer, you're not necessarily going to say that you don't give your employees a voice. And I wonder if that's where the crossover happens with what support is needed on the charter. It's not just about each individual organisation in meeting the charter. It's about us collectively taking, what am I trying to say? As a council, I suppose, ensuring that some of this stuff is happening. Like somebody said, the minimum parts of what you would expect on the charter to be met. If businesses aren't, how are we as a council giving employees a voice, and not just assuming that they're getting it through their own organisation? Is there a mechanism for that in Calderdale already? I don't know.
It would be useful, wouldn't it, if employees were given given the means to object to their employer having this charter if they didn't feel that they were adhering to the charter. So there'd be, for me, there'd need to be some means of saying they're not, and this is why, without it being brought back to them.
A bit like, I suppose, Ofsted. There is that mechanism in Ofsted, isn't there, to report directly to Ofsted about your school.
Yeah, I was thinking that possibly the council could have its own whistleblowing helpline that extends to suppliers, but again, that would be quite costly to implement.
Yep.
I think they're all really great ideas for the employee, but there also then needs to be support for the employer, because you're going to have staff that leave, they're going to be bitter for whatever reason, maybe that they haven't been treated properly when actually maybe the employer has done everything that they could have or should have. It's a very fine line, and I just think there needs to be a lot more information for the employer as well as the employee, and maybe some training. A lot of small businesses, that they might not have worked for a company ever. They might have just run their own little one-man band and employ a couple of people and not know anything about any of this.
Yeah.
And unless they're informed and they have that knowledge, they probably think they're the best employer in the world, when actually they may not be, but they don't realise it. So I think information's a big thing, and I think the idea of a website that is accessible for everybody is great, but I think there needs to be as much information for the businesses as there is for the employees.
Yeah. Yes, I absolutely agree. It's a sandwich of support in my visual head. Thinking we have got to protect those, people that are being exploited, that are having the worst conditions, and that is possibly slightly to the side there. That's we know that's a criminal issue, but there are, having worked for a fairly big employer before, there are, people leave disgruntled and put complaints in and all of that. And the same happens with schools and through Ofsted as well. But I do like the idea of a whistleblowing, something in the council. Or maybe something exists already, I don't know. Yeah,
I think that's a good idea. And it may not necessarily be the employee that reports the employer. You know, it may be that you've been in a shop or an establishment and seen the way that the staff are being treated and perhaps not agreed with it. And maybe it's for the general public also to ensure that employers are being fair. A lot of employees wouldn't want to report anything through the fear of losing the job. They may need that employment and that security, and they're not going to risk losing their job by complaining. But if other people complain, then. But yeah, I think a lot of it is it's down to information. It's making sure that the knowledge is out there and accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, can I just jump in? I agree with what you said there, Rachel. You know, it's about informing employees, you know, what they should expect and what avenue to go down if that's, you know, if that's not being met, and certainly if the employer is breaking the law. I think when you start talking about whistleblowing, you know, that sounds like a hard sell to get employers on board with,
doesn't it? Yeah.
And if we could just go back to some other points that I've made, certainly when we're talking about the best practice and you know, encouraging good working conditions, it's exactly that. It's about communication and selling the idea to the employer about the benefits of you know, of implementing these low cost, if any cost at all. I mean, there's no cost in inclusive recruitment practices at all. You know, but if we could sell the idea of it, and I agree with what Sue said earlier on, that it sort of splits into two areas, because once you start talking about pay increases and guaranteeing hours, and you know, every business out there has only got a certain percentage of revenue that can go towards these costs, and that also includes taking on work experience, where you know that can, you know, they don't have staff sat around that can just, you know, look after these people and spend time with them. Everything's got a price, you know, structure to it.
Sorry. Were you going to? Oh,
no,
okay. Just before we've got 10 minutes. So the other one I wanted to kind of dig a bit further into was the fulfillment domain as well. So, and thinking about what would signing up to the charter mean for the community? Could it mean for the community that exists around a factory and you know, a big employer in Calderdale?
I'm not quite sure this exactly answers that question, Vicky, but it's a thought in my head.
Go on.
I'm just wondering if there's a danger around the whole thing that we get the businesses and organisations that sign up to it, and does it maybe seem that they've joined an elite of these are the really good businesses, but what about the ones that choose not to? What about employees who work for other organisations? And is there any way that they can be supported or have some access to it, or just be involved in the process? Because otherwise I don't see how it includes everyone in the way that we would like it to. And it could be a club of the best businesses, but everyone else says, well, we're all right, we don't need to do this.
And I think that's where I'm coming from with the, I suppose, not the ones who aren't achieving this because for whatever reason they're not achieving it, but those that are actually going against it, the very worst employers. How are we making sure that this isn't just about going, aren't we brilliant, and ignoring the grey side of things?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've discussed around the social value thing is that this becomes an essential if you're going to do business with the council. But if you're an organisation or a business that doesn't trade with the council, then we have no impact at all on that. But it's that sort of sharing and growth amongst it. I mean, other areas have done it, haven't they, Vicky? They've launched fair work charters, etc.
Greater Manchester have got one, haven't they?
Yeah. But there's something about that it's, you know, it's I mean, I'd made a note that actually it's not about the ones, it's because generally the people who turn up for these are people who are either already doing it or interested in trying to do it. It's that the ones that aren't, that are the gap and hard to reach.
And some of those that's not through fault of their own for not wanting to. Do you know, they need support, they need encouragement, and they need education around why some of this is important as well. They're the willing, I suppose, and then you've got a grey economy area that we can't ignore. We haven't, you know, had instances of modern day slavery in Calderdale. We can't ignore that. Yeah.
You know, a lot of the things that I see that are about supporting businesses, a lot of initiatives, because they've got to evidence who they've helped to get funding, it's never just there. It's always email us for more and sign up for this 6-week course. And people, like you say, small businesses who are actually working all the time, they just don't have time. And so I kind of think just put it up there. Put all of this advice on one website where it's already there. You don't have to go and sign up for anything. You can just, you know, try it, work towards it. Just take these great ideas and implement them, because if anybody does anything towards any of these things, it's for the greater good, isn't it?
I think you're absolutely right. I think business support, we know that the way it's funded, the way certain initiatives around business support are funded, they are for certain bits of work, and that the council doesn't have a what's it called, a statutory duty to provide business support. Where, you know, our team isn't statutory either, and it's very much reliant on the moment West Yorkshire funding or national funding, and it comes with all these terms and, you know, who you can work with and what this particular tranche of money is for, and it does feel like, what is the Calderdale business support offer, the whole thing, I suppose, or yeah, when those bits of funding are not there and things. So I think what you were kind of saying there is we just need something out there that says this is what's there, under one heading, I suppose.
Yeah, I think like David says, it's about really simple messages and not putting people off. Like, this is what inclusive pathways looks like. And it's just, here's a 1-page, really simple things to follow.
And examples.
Yeah, for each one, you could have this listed and click on each one and get just a bit more.
We're doing it sort of links into this. We're working with partners on helping VCSE and SME business organisations and businesses about just how they get into working with public sector, so bidding for public sector business, and a lot of that is around this simple information or accessible. And one of the things we're doing is actually, it's going to take a look at what puts people off and why they don't do it, so that we can have a look at our processes and our documents to say, right, what is it that's getting in the way? And I think it's something like that, is that, you know, knowing what it is that you don't know what you don't know. So it's that you know, having that sort of contact point or that basis. I mean, the one thing I do find is documentation's great, but for a lot of businesses, and you know, they're too busy to read it. It's possibly that hand holding.
Sorry.
Oh, Vicky's cat's just run across.
He always makes an appearance. Michelle, were you trying to say something before?
It's okay, it's been covered, it's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any last points before I just take us to the last slide? You want to go in? Okay, so what happens next? Well, as I said at the beginning, the point of bringing everybody today was to chew over, have an interesting discussion, and I really genuinely feel that we've had quite an interesting discussion, and a lot of good ideas have come up in there that I now ask you to please respond to the consultation and put those in there, and to share it with anyone else that you think might be interested in taking part, whether they're an employer or an employee as well. There is a link there for the consultation, but if you just Google West Yorkshire Fair Work Charter, you will find it. It's open until Easter, the 22nd of April, and the Mayor is hoping to, or aiming to, launch the Fair Work Charter around autumn this year. So following the consultation, the stakeholder group will get back together and work out the next steps of what this turns into. You can keep updated and sign up to receive updates on the consultation page again as well. And that's it. That's it for today. But thank you very, very much for coming along and participating in the conversation. I found it really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. It's been
Thank
good.
you, Vicky.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.